Dear learners, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Prashant Gautam from University Institute of Hotel and Tourism Management, Punjab University. Today, under the paper Tourism Planning and Sustainable Development, we are taking the module titled Tourism Project Feasibility Study. Dear learners, after completing this module, you will be able to know about the tourism project feasibility. You will be able to understand the process involved in tourism feasibility study, understand the feasibility study's impact over the tourism project. Tourism feasibility study plays an important role in tourism. It is an underpinning component of in-destination development assignments, particularly in the region of art, culture and recreation. The feasibility study helps in viability of the tourism project as well as helps in enhancing the concept prior to implementation of the tourism project. In order to construct flourishing destination, tourism and economic, there is an invariable need for prevalent background information, piercingly polished critical skills, and a sound impulse for capturing the most influential industry, intelligence concealed in the marketplace. The feasibility study helps in tapping the accessible data source as well as the derivative research and combines that information with primary research to cover an inclusive picture. The feasibility study involves a progression of steps like the preliminary research and basic attentiveness, new conception research, concept enrichment testing and industry aptitude. The feasibility study centers on the question that should we continue with the proposed project idea? Hence, all the actions are intended at getting answer to this question. These studies are used in a variety of ways focusing on anticipated industry endeavors. Hence, all the stakeholders of tourism, including the government with the business idea, should carry out a viability study to establish the practicability of their suggestion prior to scheduled tourism development. Seeing the viability of the business idea saves your precious efforts, time and money. It also helps to analyze the possible risks, viable in short or longer run, and to assemble the goals of the initiators and planners. A feasibility study is merely a solitary footstep in the industry calculation and business growth process. It helps in reviewing the process and laying down the right perspective. The feasibility study helps to frame and flesh out precise business choices so that they can be studied in depth. And business alternatives under deliberations can be quickly reduced. It is just like a probing expedition in which you can take different paths to reach a destination. It also helps to get rid of the laws or limitations existing in the tourism destination before implementing the right strategies. For example, in the case of a motel or inn, the number of beds may be concentrated or added. Tourism drivers have to be lectured, accessibility need to be enhanced, or healthier examples from group participations may be needed. Previous to going for a full-scale feasibility study, a small pre-feasibility analysis by the government or concerned agency helps in analyzing the tourist destination and gives a direction to the study. A feasibility study is not a business plan. The separate role of the business study and the business plan are generally misunderstood by everybody. The feasibility study helps in examining various purposes. It addresses the inquiry that is this a practical business venture? The business proposal gives a planning purpose. The business idea summarizes the action required to take the proposal from idea to reality. The feasibility study defines and inspects a number of substitutions to achieve industry achievement. So, the feasibility study supports to match the extent of the project to recognize the finest business model. The business plan agreements with only one alternative. The feasibility study is guided before the business plan. A business plan is completed only after the business venture has been believed to be possible. If a proposed business venture is measured to be feasible, then a business plan is created that provides a roadmap of how the business will be formed and developed. The business plan deals with blueprint for project conclusion. If the venture is believed not to be feasible, efforts might be made to accurate its faults. Other replacements may be revealed or the idea is dropped. Reasons given for not doing feasibility analysis include: we understand it's viable, an accessible business is now doing it. Why do an extra viability homework when one was completed just a few years before? Feasibility studies are currently a style for consultants to earn wealth. The feasibility analysis has by now been completed by the industry. Why not just appoint a general manager who can do the homework? Feasibility studies are considered as surplus of time. Now, the reasons to do a feasibility study: offers spotlights to the scheme and outlines substitutes, constricts business alternatives, surfaces innovative prospects through the exploratory process, classifies the causes not to proceed, increase the likelihood of success by adopting and modifying factors near the beginning that could influence the project, provides important information for decisions making, helps in increase the assets, offers certification that the business venture was thoroughly investigated. It helps in obtaining finance from lending institutions and extra sources of funds. The feasibility study is a serious step in the tourism business assessment process. If correctly conducted, it may be the most excellent investment you ever have made. And if you cannot afford a feasibility study, you can't afford to proceed with the project. The feasibility studies intend to independently and logically reveal the strengths and weaknesses of an hand-on business or suggested venture, chances and dangers present in the natural setting, the assets or bounty resources essential to bring from beginning to end, and eventually the forecast for accomplishments. Feasibility studies evaluates the project's prospective for successes. Consequently, supposed objectivity is an imperative factor in the trustworthiness of the study for budding patrons and learning organizations. Hence, these studies should always be carried out with a goal-oriented, unprejudiced approach to make available information upon which judgments can be based. The feasibility studies focus different perspectives of a tourism projects and helps in providing a clear-cut view. Telos is a type of assessment which provides feasibility study in the 5 areas: T for technical, E for economic, L for legal, O for operational and S for schedule. Telos. Technical feasibility. This assessment analysis the technical or professional expertise of a project. It considers whether the project professionals involved in the project can deliver the required goals and objectives. Further, it also analyzes the already existing technical staff competence on various aspects of a scale. Technical feasibility analyzes the project to evaluate supplementary possible technical factors which could affect the study. Legal feasibility. The feasibility of a project or tourism destination is also viewed in context to the legal requirements. A tourism project may be very promising, bringing great dividends to all stakeholders, but the legal requirements cannot be ignored, nor they cannot be modified. Hence, the entire legal framework in all the processes involved in project should be studied, analyzed and implemented. Operational feasibility. Operational feasibility analyzes the operational quality of the project. This means that the tourism destination project prepared should be justified and good. It should be good enough to match with the existing business environment. Also, the needs and wants of the stakeholders in the tourism industry should be considered as the tourism environment is made up by them. Apart from these aspects, the sustainability, carrying capacity, and community development should also be made an integral part of the operational feasibility. Economic feasibility. The economic feasibility assessment helps in determining the affirmative fiscal advantages to the tourism development and that the planned tourism systems will present. It includes enumerating and recognizing all the benefits anticipated. This assessment typically involves a cost benefit analysis. It helps in analyzing the significance of outlay and its effect on stakeholders' benefits. It helps in proper utilization of funds and limiting the futile expenditure. It plays an important role in developed and more importantly in developing countries where monetary utilizations have to be done more effectively. Technical feasibility. The technical feasibility appraisal is paying attention on gaining a thoughtfulness of the at-hand technological possessions of the destination management agency and their suitability to handle the job. In order to make the tourism system more effective, the tourism destination planning and the management has also to be made more effective and purposive rather than focusing on phantom and illusionary aspects. Schedule feasibility. The tourism projects or planning a tourism destination should follow a time period. As if the implementation of tourism projects take lot of time, then the development and planning in tourism destination will go meaningless. Hence, the time deadlines play an important role in tourism developments. Planning is directly proportional to time scale. Hence, tourism destination should follow a time frame for development in a phased manner. Apart from the above feasibility factors, there are other feasibilities such as resource feasibility, cultural feasibility, financial feasibility, and tourism market feasibilities. All these various types of feasibilities are the subsets of the main set. For example, tourism destination development and planning. Doing research and preparing checklists. In the feasibility study, it is very imperative to explore about the tourist region, area, destination, government bylaws, local government set of laws and fundamentals, local culture and local people thoughtfulness, viewpoint of the tourism businesses, requirement of the tourism industry, etc. Hence, all these aspects form the checklist of the feasibility study, so that each aspect could act as important guidelines in the tourism industry. Hence, various aspects or checklists for the feasibility studies are as follows and should be taken into consideration. Though they vary from one feasibility study to other feasibility study. Have you given enough time for the feasibility study? Have you reviewed the risk associated with the tourism destination? Have you examined the various factors and stakeholders operating in tourism destination and tourism environment? What is the governmental climate? What is the monetary situation? Do the feasibility studies deliver you as much detail about your personal information of and experience with the place and the population who will be the study participants? Have you been there before? How long is the feasibility study? In what ability or role the feasibility study was conducted? If you have not been there before, how do you plan to practice yourself to go? What connections, arrangements have you made or will you make? Subject on your job and its site, there may be problems about investor safety. Should the authority tourism department be worried about your own personal well-being? Why or why not? If there is a local companion involved, such as a town, an NGO, a school, etc., what is the job of organization? Are you assessing the programs and services? And if so, what would be the implication of the results? Is there any possibility to involve the stakeholders? Are there any possible negative unintended results of the partnership of job of partner for the local people? Checklists consider all the important aspects prior to the feasibility study. It helps in giving a sort of support system which is vital prior to the feasibility study. It helps in judging all the important aspects involved in the achievability of the goals laid down for tourism destination management, planning and development. Checklists take into consideration all the stakeholders' perspective, destination planning and development perspective of the planners, developers and tourism agency. Are these things are imperative to fulfill the need of tourism destination? The second is financial feasibility. The financial aspects is vital for any sort of development and planning. Hence, tourism destination also needs the startup capital to start tourism development. The purpose of financial study is to see whether how much finance needs to be poured in for its successful implementation. It helps to know the type of investment desired, sources of money, earning on investment and other financial negotiations. In simple word, it looks that how much money is required, where it will come from and how it will be used up. A financial feasibility study is an appraisal of the fiscal aspects of the tourism projects at a tourist destination. For the duty of starting a business or interesting investors, at least 3 key things should be calculated in the inclusive financial feasibility study in the tourist destination. For example, need for startup capital, sources of funds for startup, sources of potential returns for the investors. Prior to an investment decision is completed, it is important to establish whether or not the strategic financing initiative is viable. The likelihood of an investing has to be well thought out with respect to a number of diverse aspects in order to establish whether the investment should be comprehended or not. The feasibility analysis is consequently carried out as an essential and one of the most serious steps in the decision making method. Number 3. Structuring and writing feasibility report. It is very important to structure and put in writing the feasibility study after its implementation. How you present and document the final feasibility study is just as important as the information it contains. The feasibility study contains a lot of material. Hence, always file the documents or put it in a portfolio or binder. Finding information easily and swiftly is significant to busy lenders and investors. So, include tab to designate each constituent in your feasibility study. The feasibility study should have a cover letter, which should be specific rather than generic. It should specify the key details of the feasibility study. Prior to submission, all the aspects in the feasibility study should be done properly. The objectives, research methodology, and research design should be framed properly. Then, the writing of the report should be done properly. The data collected should be analyzed properly and precisely. And conclusions should be drawn keeping in mind the evidences and results of the feasibility assessment. Prior to submitting the study, the proofreading should be done to check for content and errors. Typographical errors will make the study appear rushed or unethical, and if your descriptions and computations do not make common sense to the reader, they are considered insignificant. The conclusions and the recommendations can be given together or separately. If you are writing the conclusions in the end, then it serves as a summary of all details in the study. But it can also be placed after the table of contents as executive summary. This executive summary sets the tone and identifies main aspects for the person who reads it prior to the comprehensive details of the report. Some points to remember. A feasibility study is a progression in which you give the impression of being at a personal to see if it is realistic, that is, if and how it will work. An all-inclusive feasibility study looks at the complete structure, needs and the operations of a business. An adequate or project feasibility study looks at a solitary defined task, schedule, idea or dilemma. Viability study looks at both sides, bearing a psyche, pros and cons and problems. A practicability study is not a business plan, but serves as a base for building your business plan. A marketplace viability study is not a marketing plan, but studies markets and market perspective and can be used to sustain or expand as a marketing plan. A lending institution, organization may necessitate submission of a feasibility study before taking into consideration the demand for resources. Report production. The purpose of the existing feasibility study is to evaluate diverse facets of by means of reflexive transportable positioning information records for tourism statistics. The yield of the feasibility study contains of 5 reports that adopt the main objectives from different aspects. These reports are: 1. Stock taking. It contains an up-to-date explanation of the state of the art in consuming data in study and presentations in tourism figures and linked spheres of influence. Number 2. Feasibility of access. It delivers a portrayal of the monitoring, business and technical phases of data user friendliness. Number 3. Feasibility of use methodology issues. They delivers a technique for the creation of tourism statistics by means of data. 4. Feasibility of use coherence. It evaluates the logic of tourism figures attains from various sources like surveys, statistics, tourist statistics, etc. Number 5. Opportunities and benefits. They give attention to the possible opportunities and profits the practice of mobile positioning data can pass to tourism figures. Based on the foundations of the data, different methodological issues and techniques are necessary to process the data. Comparing the tourism statistics from known mobile positioning sources to available mobile positioning based data. Analyzing the reliability of specific indicators like the accommodation occupancy, number of tourists, the length of stay, etc. Analyzing the parallel statistics between different countries, regions, areas, destinations. The report production involves presentations of the feasibility and pre-research to see the viability of the tourism project. The tourism reports involve presentation of the feasibility study in form of report. The report includes preface, preamble, introduction, objectives of the study, research methodology, research design, conclusions, recommendations, significance and importance of study. Preparing a business plan. The feasibility study helps the tourism planners, developers and thinkers to give a roadmap for a tourist destination. It helps in preparing a business plan in an array of areas that make up tourist destination. It gives a lot of dimensions to the stakeholders of tourism. The business plan helps to check out strategies necessary for an individual, company or tourism stakeholder to see the extent of scope and most importantly to incorporate the viability for that. Hence, the tourism plan, rather we can say that the efficient and effective business plans help in daily management or guide the decision ability of the tourism stakeholders and individuals by taking into consideration a number of aspects. It helps in developing multiple objectives through organized planning and development. When the business plan acts as a guide for the commencement of a noble tourism business, the entrepreneur more often than not tends to put the business in a slightly more unenthusiastic scenario than would be logical to imagine. This is the contradictory of what you would do when trying to enlarge a business plan for external use. It is imperative, consequently, to note that the business plan is not going to take action to only one of those objectives but to all of them. Thank you.